Power here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one, I'm going to be doing a tier list for the Pokemon Tag Team mechanic, and as you may have guessed by the title, it's going to be an interesting spin on it. We're going to be doing it for the quad format. So, for those of you who don't know, the quad format, pretty self-explanatory in the name, but you can only play 4 Pokemon in your deck, and trainers and energy are limited to expanded. So, for the tag team version of the quad format, you can play 4 in any combination of tag team Pokemon. So, for example, you could play 2 Pikachu and Zekrom tag team, and then 2 Lone Raichu, or you could play 3 Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia GX, and then 1 copy of Latios and Latias. And those are essentially the rules of the quad format, or at least the tag team version. So, with all that said and due, let's just get into the tier list. So, for the rankings, we have Ban. There is, believe it or not, 1 card that is banned in this format. Of course, if you're just playing casually with friends, and this format is more or less designed to be a casual thing between friends, then of course you don't actually have to play with the banned card. Like you can, well, I should say you can play with the banned card, but it's not recommended because of how very strong it is effectively. So there is a 1 banned card. You can try and work it out if you don't want to fast forward the video. Then there's Simply the Best in S tier, Amazing is A tier, B, Better but not Broken is B tier, sorry. C is Can Try It, but it's not really recommended. D is for Don't Bother, and then G is for Little Garbage. So, well, that's said and done. Also, worth noting is I have a Limitless website over here, just so we can check the full translations of the cards and not get any mistakes made, because, there's like a ton of different effects on each of these Pokemon. There is a lot of text on a lot of them, so we do have to bear that in mind, and it will factor in how good these cards are. So the first up is Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia. Pretty infamous card. Has the attack Ultimate Ray, does 150 damage. Search your deck for 3 basic energy. So we'll always have 2 KO potential in this format, and it will always be accelerating energy, which is very handy. It's not hitting anything for weakness, which is super jarring, and is weak to Guardian, the Gardevoir and Sylveon, which is fairly bad actually. But Altered Creation says your attacks do 30 more damage, and you take 1 extra prize card. Naturally, every Pokemon in this format is giving up 3 prize cards, so the only reason that taking an extra prize card really matters is you just get to take more prize cards, effectively. You are taking a 4th prize card, which just means you'll see more of your prize cards without having to use, Peonia, for example, or Hisuian Heavy Ball. So, all that's said and done, Double Dragon Energy is still kind of legal in this format, so with that bearing in mind, I think Arceus is in Simply the Best. I think this is S tier card, just because it's one of the few Pokemon, if not the only Pokemon on this list, that is accelerating energy. So next one, we have the Baby Trio. I will have to look these guys up because I don't remember what they all do. I think there is a pretty okay GX attack. Okay, maybe not. Okay, so Togepi, Clefairy, and Igglybuff, commonly known as the Baby Trio. 240 HP is absolutely abysmal. 2 Fairy Nicholas, 120. Flip a coin until you get Tails. This attack does 30 more damage for each heads. Okay, that's pretty bad. And then Supreme Puff GX. Take another turn after this one. Okay, that's pretty good. If this Pokemon has at least 14 extra Fairy Energy attached to it, okay, that's very unrealistic. Your opponent shuffles all the bench Pokemon and all the cards attached to them into their deck. Very memeish card. Low HP really lets this card down though. I don't hate Supreme Puff GX just because it means that if you go second, there is actually a trainer in Expanded that will allow you to search your deck for a Fairy Energy and attach it to one of your Pokemon. So you can actually use Supreme Puff going second, then take an extra turn and potentially get a donk with Rolling Panic effectively, which is really funny. And you can use Glimwood Tangle, and because you're not probably playing abilities in this quad deck, you could just get away with playing greens to find these supporters and trainers that you need. So I don't hate this card. I think it's deceptively okay, but it's also just got abysmal hit points, so any kind of serious damage modifiers on a lot of the other Pokemon will definitely make building a deck around this pretty difficult. So as much as I want to say D don't bother or even garbage, I think this is low C tier, but that's just because of the amount of support fairy types do actually have in Expanded. So the next one is going to be the Bird Trio. So that is Moltres, Zapdos, Articuno. Also, I probably should have mentioned this right at the start of the video. but I will just do a re-review at the end to try and like check over things and make sure everything is in where it needs to be. So yeah, Moltres Zapdos Articuno, 300 HP, so naturally off the bat, that's amazing. Stellar HP, love it. Colorless Pokemon though, so you're not hitting anything for weakness. You're also weak to Zekrom, which is terrible, frankly. But Trinity Burn does 210 damage, and then for a Fire, Water, Colorless Lightning. So it's not the worst. You can use Welder to pay for 2 of those, and then the Water and Lightning you have to attach manually. Obviously, because you're playing with up to 4 basics, you can use Max Elixir in this format, so there is ways of getting up to Trinity Burn. The only problem at that point is what kind of deck are you trying to play with this? Because Sky Legends is admittedly a very cool attack, doing 110 to 3. So I could foresee a deck where maybe you use ADP to accelerate energy for Sky Legends, and then you use Sky Legends to just damage all of your opponent's tag teams, and then want to kill the rest of them with ADP seems okay. Also, just Trinity Burn in general is fine, 210. With a Choice Belt, it will get to 240, so if you're able to play a Field Blow in the same turn, get rid of like a Fighting Fury Belt on a Pikarom, for example, then Trinity Burn is getting a 1 KO. You could also play Powerful Colorless Energy, that is something worth mentioning. Ultimately, I think this is actually a solid card. It doesn't seem to be anything you would build a deck around, but I don't think it's by any means terrible. I'm going to put it in C tier because compared to this card, there is actually a lot of really good cards. So then we have Braixen and Charizard. Not sure why there's 2 Charizard tag teams, but here we are. That's nice. Well, Braixen is it? It's yep. There we go. Okay, so Charizard and Braixen tag team, 270 HP with the attack Brilliant Flare for 3 fire and a colorless. So naturally, we're going to lean into Welder. You may search your deck for up to 3 cards and put them into your hand. In a format where there is no Pokemon that will find you cards out of your deck or draw cards, having an attack like Brilliant Flare is amazing. And because of the amount of supporters that you have to choose from, I really doubt players will be leaning into Marnie. So being able to search your deck for any 3 cards, a very strong effect. You're also 2-hit KOing everything else, and you're 1-hit KOing Celebi and Venusaur, which is one of the better tag teams for sure. And then Crimson Flame Pillar, not so great, but 1 for energy. Attach 5 basic energy cards from your discard pile to your Pokemon any way you like. If this has at least 1 extra energy, your opponent's active is now Burned and Confused. This was a very strong attack in the Singleton format, where you could only play a single Pokemon in your deck. But because there is, multiple Pokemon in a deck, having special conditions isn't as strong as it was, if that makes any sense. So I don't think this GX attack is particularly grand, but if you're able to buy a turn, then accelerating a bunch of energy to your next attacker is pretty decent. Overall, I don't think this is a particularly great card, but I do think it's better than these 2, funny enough. Being able to search your deck for any 3 cards is actually a very strong effect, so better if not broken, and of course Welder and Magma Basin do exist. Then we have Pheromosa and Buzzwole, so we'll take a look at those translations. Pheromosa, yep. Over there, Unbroken Bonds 1, so this was the first card in that set apparently. So 260 HP, Ultra Beast, so if there's any trainers that you want to use that apply to Ultra Beast Pokemon, i.e. Beast Ring, then that will be a good option for this card. For a single Grass Energy, Jet Punch does 30 damage and 30 damage to 20 opponent's bench Pokemon. Doesn't seem that significant, but if you are trying to set up 2-hit KOs in the late game, then Jet Punch will definitely help you out there. Elegant Soul then, for 2 Grass and a Colorless, does 190, and during your next turn, this Pokemon's Elegant Soul base damage is reduced to 60. It's okay, because 190 and 50 will get you there with some modifiers to actually knock out a tag team, and then you get to take 1 extra prize card. This also says if this Pokemon has at least 7 extra energy, you'll need 8 grass energy. I'm not sure how you're getting 8 grass energy in this format onto a Buzzwole, but if you can, and you can knock out a tag team, you will just win the game because you take 3 more prize cards, you knock out tag teams that are already worth 3 prize cards each, so you can take 6 prize cards in a turn with this GX attack. Very strong effect. It's not too broken, but ultimately I think this card is super strong. If anything, Jet Punch is its weakest move, and then Elegant Soul and Beast Game. You can easily power this up, by the way, with like Gardenia Max Elixir, so I definitely think this is quite scary. There's also the idea of maybe using, I say ADP a lot, but you could use ADP to try and accelerate all the energy on top of it. and then, you know, play double turbo energy or double colors, and then just play a Hyper Potion to heal off damage. So yeah, I actually really like Pheromosa. I think this is definitely one of the better ones. It's definitely not S tier, I don't think. I don't think it will survive on its own, even with Beat String, but definitely A for amazing, I think. So the next one is going to be Celebi Venusaur. This was like the undisputed king, I think, of the singleton format because of how disruptive it is. But Celebi Venusaur, relying on special conditions, isn't so great in a format where players can just essentially tech in a whole load of items that remove special conditions as well as healing. But either way, super interesting card regardless. 270 HP, has 3 attacks. Pollen Hazard does 50 damage for grass double colors. Your opponent's active is now burned, confused, and poisoned. Pretty decent, you know. Confusion and burn will stack up eventually, and if your opponent can't switch out of it, it's super annoying. Solar Beam only doing 150 for 4 is pretty underwhelming, but you know, if your opponent's active is already burning confused, that 150 will start to add up eventually. And then Evergreen does 180, heal all damage from this Pokemon, very strong effect. And if you had a 5th energy attached, you shuffle all cards from your discard pile into your deck. So bonkers GX attack, absolutely bonkers. You're healing all damage from Venusaur, so you're denying prizes, that's cool. And you're also recycling all your disruption and your healing items. So with bearing that in mind, I think this card is actually ridiculous in a quad format. It's better than Buzzwole though. It's probably, I mean, the problem I have with these two grass types is I know that Reshiram and Charizard is easily simply the best. Like, it's easy S tier, so that's why I'm like hesitant to put these guys so high because of how popular Charizard would be. But either way, I do think this is actually amazing, right? Amazing tier, we'll say it's amazing. So the Alolan Raichu, I believe, is not actually too great. It's good in like Pikachu, but it's not good with anything else. So what I might do is actually, nope, it's Raichu. I don't know how to spell anything. Apologies. Right, there we go. So, Raichu alone, Raichu, 260 HP, so again a bit on the low side, but either way, 2 lightning colors, Tandem Shock does 80 damage. If his Pokemon was on the bench and became reactive, it does 160 damage, and your opponent's active is now paralyzed. So I guess the whole point of this deck is you're going to try and use Thunder Mountain and Speed Lightning Energy to quickly set up a Pikarom, to then accelerate energies and use Tandem Shock, and then start to use, you know, switching loops with like Mellow and Lana and stuff. And then if you really want to, Lightning Ride does 150 and you retreat. Yeah, you just switch out. But if you have 2 extra energy, you do 100 more damage. So you actually do 250. And with one choice belt or something, this could very easily want to kill another tag team. So very strong card in that regard. So this will definitely be, I think this is like easy B tier. I'm not sure if it's better than Braixen Zard though. Yeah, we'll say it's better actually because of the compatibility with Thunder Mountain and Pikarom. So, and I said Pekarom there for some reason, but yeah, Pikarom. So I think we're finally seeing our first pretty bad card, and that is going to be the Deoxys Espeon, which is a decent card in Expanded and pretty decent in the time that it saw playing Standard. In fact, it was very good. But either way, this Espeon and Deoxys is pretty mediocre by the quad format standards, because Psychic Club does 10 damage and 30 more for each of your bench Psychic Pokemon. Spoiler alert, you can only do 100 damage with this attack because you can only have 3 bench Psychic Pokemon anyway. So, very underwhelming attack, not even to curing anything without modifiers. And then Cross Division for a Psychic 2 colors, put 10 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. If this Pokemon has at least 3 extra energy attached to it, put 20 damage counters on them instead. So that's just 200 damage. For those of you who are a little bit unfamiliar with how those damage counters work, because they are a bit of a pain. It's a very strong Jex attack, will definitely sway some games in your favor, but the attack being so abysmal and there being just so many other better Psychic types definitely has me concerned about Espeon. I don't think it's complete garbage, but it's certainly a don't bother tier for me. I do think Togepic, I know this seems like a weird placement, but I do think this one actually has more merits than the Espeon Deoxys over here. But either way, we have Darkrai and Umbreon. I'm pretty sure this was an amazing card the last time I looked at it, but Umbreon and Darkrai. 270 HP, the attack Black Lance for 2 Dark and a Colorless does 150 and then 60 to one of your opponent's bench GX or EX. Very strong. There is no bench protection in this format apart from a stadium that will offer you some protection if you want it, but this is one of the few Pokemon that will actually do sniping damage, so there's not really much reason to play that stadium. And then Dark Moon for 1 Colorless says your opponents can't play any trainers from their hand during the next turn. Very strong effect if you're going second. And if his Pokemon has at least 5 extra Dark Energy attached to it, though, your opponent's active Pokemon is just knocked out. So that's a very strong effect. I think this card is overall is very strong. It's very good with the Zoroark tag team, so they could be a very cool duo. You could play this as a quad build, but I think it's just better with the Zoroark because Zoroark will put onto the bench as well as charge up some energies to it, so I do think it is very strong in that regard. Also, just having an instant KO effect, even if it's for 6 energy, is very, very strong, so I think this is amazing tier, to be honest. So I think we have the only garbage card on the list, and that is going to be Eevee and Snorlax. I can just remember how you even spell Eevee. Oh, it's quite a lot of Eevees apparently. Eevee and Snorlax, 270 HP, colorless type. It is, I believe, the only colorless Pokemon on this list apart from Mega Lopunny. So Eevee and Snorlax with the attack cheer up says attach energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon. This can be double colorless energy, which is super useful. And then dump truck press for 4 colors. Getting ahead of myself there. Does 120, and if your opponent's active as an evolution, it actually does 240. But there's no evolution Pokemon even in this format. So it's 4 colorless energy to do 120, which is absolutely terrible. Megaton Friends doing 210 for 4 is okay, admittedly, because it will get there with modifiers. But it has to have 1 extra energy in order to drop to 10, which isn't even a particularly great effect. So all that's said and done, I think this card is just very bad in comparison to most of the other ones in this format. So it's going to be a garbage tier placement for me, funnily enough. I think this is one of the only 2 cards that are in complete garbage, similar to how there's only going to be 1 card in the banned tier list. So next up, we have the counter to ADP, or the ultimate counter at least, is Gardevoir and Sylveon tag team. So if I can just get the prompt up, there we go. There's so many Gardevoir cards as well. 260 HP and has 2 very powerful attacks and then an even more powerful GX attack. Fairy Song says search your deck for up to 2 Fairy Energy, attach them to your bench Pokemon any way you like. Very useful with Energy Switch, Tag Call, all that kind of shenanigans. You can very easily power up a fellow Guardian. And then Keldeo Storm does 150 and you move any number of energy from your Pokemon to your other Pokemon any way you like. Meaning you can just move energy off a Guardian that's about to be knocked out onto another one to then use something like a Max Potion, for example, which is uber broken. And then that's a lot of M's. Magical Miracle for 3 Fairy does 200, and if this Pokemon has at least 3 extra Fairy, so 6 energy in total, your opponent shuffles their hand to their deck. And there is no ways to drop more cards apart from the Eevee and Snorlax, which I just put in garbage tier. So Gardevoir and Sylveon, very, very strong card, was even its own quad deck in standard, like back in the day. So I think this is S tier because it directly counters this, which we'll see a ton of play anyway, and it's just a very strong card either way. So Gengar Mimikyou is the only card in the ban tier. You can of course change this if you want to. You know, if you want to play with Gengar Mimikyou, that's absolutely fine. But ultimately, this card got banned because for single Psychic Energy, it just says your opponent can't play any cards during the next turn for a GX attack. And then for 2 Psychic Energy, it does 50 damage for each trainer card in your opponent's hand. And because each player is only playing with 4 Pokemon, their deck is naturally going to be heavily inclined towards trainers. And so it's very easy for a Gengar to just take a 1-hit KO on any Pokemon in this format. So Gengar gets the ban hammer, sadly. If it wasn't in ban tier, it would be simply the best if anyone's just curious. So yeah, that's where Gengar sits. But swiftly moving on, we have Gengar and, not Gengar and Zoroark, Greninja and Zoroark. Greninja and Zoroark GX. So 250 HP, definitely on the low side here, but Dark Pulse does 30 damage for a Dark and a Colorless, and then 30 more times the amount of Dark Energy attached to all of your Pokemon. And then Dark Union for Dark Colors says put 2 any combination of Dark Pokemon GX, i.e. Darkrai, from your discard pile onto your bench. And if this Pokemon has at least 1 extra energy attached to it, so 3 Dark Energy, or admittedly a double Colorless and a Dark Energy, then attach 2 energy cards from your discard pile to each Pokemon that you put onto your bench. So what's really cool is that you can put 2 different tag teams onto the bench, 2 different dark type tag teams, and attach 2 different dark energy. So you could use this to essentially build up a Sabltar, which is a very devastating high HP attacker, or you could build up the Darkrai and Umbreon. So all that said and done, even though the damage output for the first attack is fairly underwhelming, even with Dark Patch and Max Elixir, I still think this card it's probably up here just because of the Pokemon that it supports. But yeah, it's not broken though, because you need to get the energy in the discard pile anyway. So yeah, I think this is probably like sits around here. It's definitely better than Breaks and Zard, but it's definitely not on par with these guys. So yeah, I think Greninja Zoroark sits there. Then we have Latios and Latias that I admittedly don't remember what it does. I just remember that it's a very cool looking card. But yeah, this one has 250 HP, so again on a bit of a low side. For a very awkward attack cost of Water 2 Psychic Colorless, remember we do have Double Dragon G, does 240, but you have to discard 3 energy. So that's super awkward. You can't just discard 1 Double Dragon energy, you have to discard at least 2 or 1 Double Dragon and a basic. Very awkward. And then Area Unit GX for 1 Psychic says attach 5 basic energy cards from your discard pile to your Pokemon any way you like. And if you have 1 extra energy, prevent all effects of attacks, including damage done to it during your opponent's next turn. A pretty decent effect. Your opponent can just boss around it, or play a rope or a great catcher. So the GX attack is subpar, the HP is subpar, the attack is very underwhelming, even though it's it's a big 1 Akira move, but you're not going to be using it more than once realistically. So yeah, even being a dragon Pokemon, I think this is like really bad. Is it even worse than Snorlax? Is it ever worse than Snorlax? I'm trying to think in my head if this card would ever be worse than these guys. I honestly want to move Deoxys down, having seen how bad this one is. But the GX attack on Deoxys probably elevates it quite highly. These two, I think, are just pretty bad overall. So yeah, well, unfortunately, we'll keep Latias down here. But yeah, pretty bad. So the next one we have is Lucario Melametal. So this one, 260 HP, very powerful. Steel Fist, 50 damage. Search your deck for a Fire Energy, Metal Energy card and attach it to this Pokemon. So you can use Double Colorless, which is very ideal because it means going second, you can use Double Colorless to find Metal Energy. Then the following turn, you can do Heavy Impact for 150. So if Steel Fist was for 50, and then say you found a Choice Belt because you could do like Guzma and Hala for a Choice Belt and Double Colorless Energy, then you're doing 80, then you factor in Heavy Impact doing 150. So, assuming your Choice Belt stayed on for Heavy Impact, you can then follow it up with a 180 hit. So very strong attacks, in my opinion. I do think they complement each other very well. And then Full Metal Wall says, for the rest of the game, your Metal Pokemon take 30 less damage from your opponent's attacks. Very strong effect. And if you have at least 1 extra energy, notice how it says it doesn't specify Metal Energy, so you can just use a Double Colors for this effect. Discard all energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. So very disruptive card, very, very just strong overall. A lot of tanking capability, and it was top tier in the time that it was in standard. So I think Luke Metal might sit in S tier, to be honest. I think it definitely has all the merits it needs to be strong. It's also hitting weakness on Guardian, which hits weakness on ADP, so kind of forming this almost rock paper scissors format in S tier, but yeah, seems pretty strong. Without further ado, though, we're going to be looking at Wailord next. Magikarp and Wailord. Sadly, a pretty bad card from what I remember. Yep, pretty bad. Super Splash, 180 damage is pretty cool, but it's for 5 water energy, and then Towering Splash GX does 10 damage for a single water energy. But if you have 8 energy, this attack does 100 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. But the big question of the day is how are you getting 8 water energy on Wailord in the first place? Seems pretty difficult to do. I can definitely imagine someone trying this out with ADP if this format was, forced on people. I'm saying this all the time, hypothetically, like this format exists, but just bear with me on that front. But either way, it's an okay card. Funny enough, having 300 hit points does mean you're going to be tanking an awful lot of the time. But yeah, I think Wailord is pretty bad overall. I think this is like don't bother tier. I mean, you can try it, but it's... Yeah, I think Whaler probably just sits in Don't Bother, to be honest. It's not enough there. It's definitely not enough going on for this Whaler to be considered very good. We have Marshadow and Machamp. Two pretty useful attacks, actually. Revenge doing 30, and then if any of your Pokemon die during your last turn, this attack does 120. So it's okay, especially with modifiers like Martial Arts Dojo and Strong Energy, which is okay. Then 100 Blows Impact, we just talked about modifiers. You could definitely get that up quite high, but still probably only doing 2 it kills. And then Acme of Heroism, or however you say that word, does 200 damage with 3 energy. If you have at least 1 extra energy, if you would be knocked out during your next turn, your remaining HP becomes 10 instead. So your opponent would have to like boss around this or something. So super annoying card. Is one of the only Pokemon, if not the only Pokemon on this list actually to be a fighting type, and you make use of fighting type buffs, so you can use stuff like Karina. Seems alright, to be honest. I don't hate this card. I think there's like enough stuff. There's also like Scorched Earth Stadium to discard a fighting energy to draw 2 cards, so yeah, I don't hate Marshadow. I think it's definitely a can try it card. There's nothing that screams broken, but you know, seems okay. Then we have Mewtwo. As far as I can tell, Mewtwo might actually be garbage in this format, which is crazy, but Mewtwo, although I suppose if you can copy attacks from any of your Pokemon GX, you can just run 3 other GX Pokemon that you'd want to run, and then you just discard them and copy their attacks. Okay, I suppose that makes more sense. And then Miraculous Duo for 200 damage. This Pokemon has at least 1 extra energy, so you're forking out 4 energy, but you will heal all damage from all of your Pokemon. But realistically, this is going to be some kind of like weird funky standalone deck where you probably just aim to send 3 Pokemon GX of your choice to the discard pile and then to copy their attacks. And then you play like Welder, Aurora Energy. So actually, this is like a lot better than I initially thought it would be. So the question is it like up here with these guys? Because the attacks, you can copy a spread attack, which is cool. You can copy a Polarisis, a search for 3 move. Oh yeah, this is like, all right, this is simply the best. Fair enough. It's won me over. This can be up here. All right, swiftly moving on, we have the Alolan Grimer tier. Moving on, we have the Guzzlord and Naganadel. So Naganadel and Guzzlord is 208 HP, so very tanky. Has the ability Violent Appetite, says once in your turn before you attack, you may discard a Pokemon from your hand. If you do, heal 60 damage from his Pokemon. So how would I envision this ability being good is that you can have up to 4 Pokemon in your deck. So what you want to try and do is find the other Pokemon and then discard them with Violent Appetite to heal the damage, and then recover those Pokemon using, you know, Rescue Stretcher, Brock's Grit, any way you see fit. So Violent Appetite isn't actually that bad. And then Jet Pierce for a Psychic Dragon, a Psychic Dark Colors does 180. So I mean, that's okay, especially when you have like Choice Belt, you have Double Drag Energy, so it can be done in 2 turns. Effectively, it could be done in 1 turn with Max Elixir, so Double Dragon Switch, so very easy to pull off in that regard. And then Chaotic Order allows you to look at all your prize cards, but if it has the same attack cost as Jet Spear, you get to take 2 prize cards. It's okay. I don't hate this card, honestly. I think it's definitely got enough merits to like about it. The fact that it's tanky as well is really cool. It's weak to Guardian, which is a bit concerning. I don't think this is S tier, but I do think this is like... Yeah, I think this is like... It's probably better than some... No, it's definitely not better than these guys, actually. I think it's down there. Yeah, it's amazing tier, but it's not too great. Okay, fine, I'll do Alolan Grimer. This is like, can try it at best. It does have like some decent merits. It can do some serious Polarisis, poison, healing damage. The big problem with this card is that in a very switch heal focused format, a card that's going to rely on chip damage like Alolan Grimer is not going to be very good. So at best, I can say this is a can try it card. So then the next one we have is the very infamous Pikarom and Zekrom. So I don't think I can type in Pikarom and it'll turn up. Nope. Pikachu. I'll just type in Zekrom. Zekrom's easier. There we go. I just realized I've clicked on the wrong card. Zekrom. There we go. Pikachu and Zekrom. Yeah, 2 Zekroms for some reason. But yeah, Pikachu and Zekrom, 240 HP, very low. So you'd imagine that if your Pokemon has this low hit HP, your attacks have to make up for it. They certainly do. And because you have Thunder Mountain, a stadium card, you could essentially attack for 1 lightning less. So you could play something like Tag Call Engine with Guzma and Hala to find your Thunder Mountain and your special speed lightning energy. And then you can just use, Full Blitz for 150 for 3 lightning, suit your deck for 3 energy, attach them to 20 Pokemon, just accelerate to Raichu. You don't even have to use Tag Bolt GX if you really want to. You can just use, Raichu's GX attack. But either way, if you do, it does 200 damage and 170 snipe. So yeah, this is a very strong card. I think this is better than these guys, so I think that makes it simply the best. It's definitely on par with some of these ones, so I think it will have to be up there. Then we have Blastoise, Piplup and Blastoise. Bit of an interesting pair, but Blastoise and Piplup. One of the last tag teams to actually come out. 270 HP with Splash Maker, does 150 for 2 Water and Colors. You may attach with 3 Water Energy cards from your hand to your Pokemon any way you like, blah 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 blah. But if you do, you heal 50 damage from this Pokemon for each card you attach in this way. So not only can you build up for Bubble Launcher to do 250 and Polarisis, you can also heal 50 damage. You can also potentially heal up to 150 damage if you attach 3 Water Energy to a Pokemon. And of course, you can split these up between up to 3 Pokemon. So I do like this card a lot, actually. I think the healing is super strong. Polarisis isn't very cool, but 250 is massive. And you can easily get there to 6 energy thanks to Splash Maker. So even a standalone Blastoise deck, maybe you play like a rogue copy of Slowduck in the list as well for some funny memes. But yeah, I think this card is definitely decent. It's probably not amazing, although at this point it's probably just got better healing than Guznag, so yeah, okay, we'll put him there. We'll put Blastoise here. Probably the only time Blastoise and Piplup has been amazing on the tier list, but yeah, we'll put him up there. So Mega Lopunny is going to be the next one. This card is super jarring because on the one hand, its attack looks like it would do a ton of damage, 60 rather, and then 60 more for each of your opponent's GX. But realistically, your opponent will see this coming a mile off, and they will just put 1 GX in play. So as long as it's an open list tournament, which it probably would be anyway, Mega Lopunny really isn't that good. Puff Smasher is very bad as well. It's decent sniping damage, but then at that point, Deoxys has a far better sniping move, and that's down in Don't Bother. So I think this is truthfully, yeah, this is in garbage tier. Sorry. Zekrom is not terrible from what I remember, but it's not particularly grand either. So for Lightning Fire, which means you can use Double Dragon G going second, Fable Flare Bolts, discard 3 basic combination of energy, does 90 for each one. That's not bad, actually. Because if you can discard 3 energy, you're getting a 1-hit KO. So, and then Cross Break does 2 sniping. So, but you don't have to rely on End's Resolve and hitting energy. So it's definitely a... I think there's some potential here, actually. I don't think this is like a clunky mess like it was in Standard. I think this is like a... can try it, but Then we have Eggrow. So the infamous expanded card. See if I can remember how to spell Executor. Actually, I could scroll down, maybe. Executor. There we go. So this dude, 270 HP, super growth, is not going to do anything at all in this format, which is super unfortunate. But for 2 grass colors, does 150, heal 30. Very strong effect. And then, well, it's not strong effect, but healing damage is always nice. Then Tropical Hour for 3 grass says if this Pokemon has at least 3 energy extra energy attached to it, your opponent shovels all their energy back into their deck. This is a devastating effect in a format like this, but it's also not really doing enough damage. I think this can be amazing, but it's definitely not broken. So for that reason, I think this belongs in better but not broken tier. Sableye and Tyranitar. So I think this is Mega Sableye, I believe. Yeah, Mega Sableye and Tyranitar. Has the attack Greedy Crush, 210. If your opponent's GX is knocked out by this, you take 1 more prize card. Again, we've said taking extra prize cards doesn't necessarily matter. but it will just get you an extra resource for the next turn, so it is pretty decent in that regard. 210 is also easily modified into 1 KO territory. And then Gigafall does 250, and if this Pokemon has at least 5 extra energy, so you have to get 10 energy on this guy, but if you do, you discard the top 15 cards of your opponent's deck, highly disruptive. Also a resistance to Psychic, which is decent against Mewtwo. Probably a good partner for the Zorok deck, so I don't think this is better than Umbreon though, not by a long shot. I think this is like better but not broken. The Slowduck, oh my god, like where does Slowduck even go? Like 40 damage for each supporter card you discard from your hand is okay. I guess we can have like a look at the GX attack and see what that does. Thrilling times for the coin of heads. Attack does 100 more damage. If this Pokemon has at least 6 extra energy, okay, it's yeah. So if you're getting 3 heads though from this effect, you're just annihilating anything, but it's for 8 energy. Yeah, this is like a super memeish card. Probably like a fun one-off to try in some of these decks. Maybe even you play it in Mewtwo as like a one-off, so yeah, I think this is a Contrite card. It's not broken or anything, but it's not terrible. And then we have the Venusaur and the Snivy. So the Snivysaur deck, first card of the Cosmic Eclipse set apparently. Has 270 HP, has the ability Shining Vine. Once in your turn, if this Pokemon is reactive, you can spend a grass energy to switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active Pokemon. Forest Dump, adequately named, does 160 for 4 energy, pretty bad. But then Solar Plant does 50 damage to each your opponent's bench Pokemon. So that's actually pretty decent. And then if you have at least 2 extra energy, so 5 energy, you heal all damage from all of your Pokemon. This definitely feels like a subpar card, but it will give grass decks or decks that play basic grass energy an option for Gust, which is super unique in this format. So just the option for Gust alone warrants this to be higher than Contrite, I think. So I think this is like comfortably in here, actually. Better but not broken. It's another better but not broken. It's super mid. You know, it's definitely a tech card of sorts, but it's not, you know, mind-bogglingly good. So we have the Solgaleo and Lunala. My voice is going a bit loopy from talking too long. Solgaleo. Yeah, that's the one. Solgaleo. I don't not know how to pronounce these names. But anyway, this guy, 270 hit points, pretty cool. Cosmic Burn, 230. This Pokemon can't use Cosmic Burn during next turn, so Choice Belt, Leon, knock out anything. Light to the Protector, 200 damage if you play Lily's Full Force, which is a pretty bad card from what I remember, but it's okay. Prevent all effects of attacks, including damage done to each of your Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. So you can't just like boss around this effect. Yeah, this is like decent. I think there's just better GX attacks for psychic types to copy, like Mewtwo to copy, sorry. But I think this is like a Contrite tier actually. It's not like, I don't think it's as good as some of these dudes, but it's definitely not like down here with these losers. So yeah, I think Solgaleo and Lunala definitely can try it. Then we have the infamous Tina Chomp, which is definitely going to be a reason that could, well, it's going to be one of the reasons why Double Dragon Energy could get banned, I guess. But either way, Garchomp and Giratina, 40 damage snipe is okay, but then Calamity Slash doing 160, 80 more if your opponent has any damage counters already. Pretty decent effect to have, to be honest. Definitely going to be a Double Dragon Energy kind of deck. Obviously, Mewtwo could make use of this. And then GG End, discard one of your opponent's Pokemon or cards attached to it. If this Pokemon has at least 6 energy attached to it, discard 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. And it's just discard 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. This is like surreal in how broken this GX attack could be in a format like this, because it could be very easy to donk with this attack. You know, you just like max elixir, double dragon G, switch, whoops, I just discarded your active, so yikes. This is like this is like S tier, I think. Very jarring effect. This could honestly be up here. I would not be opposed if you'll decide, yeah, this is like band tier. But yeah, yikes. Very good effect. Then we have Trevenor, so Dusk, Snow and Trevenant. Do believe this was a promo card, actually. Yeah, this was a promo. 270 HP, Night Watch, so a bit of a Jon Snow Trevenant here. 150 for 3 Psychic, choose 2 random cards in your opponent, they shuffle them back in. Then Pale Moon for Psychic colors, at the end of your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon will be knocked out. So they have to switch out of it. And it also says if this Pokemon has at least 3 energy attached to it, discard all NG from your opponent's active Pokemon. Highly disruptive, annoying card. I think this is definitely an amazing tier. It's possibly not as good as S tier, but it's certainly getting there. I think this is like, I know Guznag's been pushed down the tier list as we've gone further on, but I think this is like, yeah, I think this is like amazing tier. Then we have Reshizard, which will be for sure in the S tier because of how powerful its effects are. But either way, Outrage, 30 damage, 10 more for each damage counter. You won't be getting 1-hit KOs with this, but for fire colors, it's certainly not bad. Then Flow Strike, 230, you can get there with modifiers. Double Blaze, 200. This Pokemon has at least 3 extra fire energy. It does 300, so you just want to kill anything. Can get there with Welders, Max Elixir. It's very easy to get there. And there's not really any top tier water types apart from the Blastoise, so I think this is like S tier. It could probably be better than, well, I think the others have set the standard way too high. I think Giratina is probably a wee bit higher than those two, but yeah. So that's actually the whole list completed. Thank you for watching, I guess. Let me know what you think down below. Do you think there's any future for this kind of quad format? Is there any placements you would change on this list? And yeah, thank you for watching. This has been Emma Power, and hope to see you next time. Thank you for watching.